I want you to imagine this. You're at a birthday lunch in the office, and a colleague brings in a homemade cake. So you take a bite, and it's really good. It's rich, moist, a perfect balance of sweet and tart. So you look up at your colleague and say, "It's not bad." She smiles politely, but something doesn't feel right. You don't know what it is, but you know that your words did not have the impact you intended. The truth is, these awkward moments, I've had them too. As an American, I naturally use compliments to show appreciation, especially around food. If someone cooks a meal for me, I'll say something like, "This is incredible. You've outdone yourself." And it's not fake. I genuinely mean it. It's how I express gratitude. But when I lived in France, I noticed something. My compliments didn't always communicate the way I had hoped. Sometimes they seemed a little too much, like I was exaggerating, even though I wasn't. And I've felt that when living in other countries too, living in Germany, the Czech Republic, and Pakistan. Each place had its own way of showing politeness, its own politeness code. And that's when I realized something I now share with all my students. Politeness is cultural. And when you're learning to speak English fluently, you're not just learning grammar and vocabulary. You're learning how to express warmth and appreciation in a way that feels natural, both to you and to the people you're speaking with. So in this lesson today, here's what we're going to do. First, we'll walk through 5 real-life situations where you might want to compliment someone's cooking or a meal you're enjoying, whether you're at a sit-down dinner in someone's home, a backyard barbecue, a potluck at work, or eating out in a restaurant. For each one, I'll give you natural, culturally appropriate phrases that sound sincere and feel true to you. Then we're going to talk about some common mistakes to avoid, things that could feel too vague, too formal, or even a little awkward in English. And finally, I'll show you how to take a basic compliment and turn it into something that creates real connection. Expressions that are simple and warm to expressive and bold so that you'll feel confident no matter the situation. So let's go ahead and start with our first situation. In this one, you're going to imagine that you've been invited to someone's home for dinner. In this case, I want you to imagine that moment. You arrive. The table is set beautifully and all the food is homemade. You can see the care they've put into everything. Maybe they've shared a family recipe or a dish that they spent all afternoon preparing. You take your first bite. It's super comforting, delicious, and full of flavor. So you want to say something, but you're not really sure what might sound natural in English. So you say, "It's okay, it's good." Or, "This is tasty." Not bad. The problem is all of those expressions are going to sound lukewarm in English-speaking culture. When something is lukewarm, it means it's not bad, but it's also not great. In fact, it sounds like you're not fully enjoying it, even if you are. The truth is, these comments just don't reflect the warmth or appreciation you might actually feel for someone who has spent that time creating that meal for you. So here's what you can say instead. If the food is truly delicious and you want your compliment to feel enthusiastic and sincere, you can try, "You've really outdone yourself. This is absolutely delicious." This kind of compliment acknowledges the time and effort behind the meal, not just how it tastes, but also the care that went into making it. Another option is, "Everything is cooked perfectly. The flavors work so well together." Now, if you prefer something softer or understated, you might say, "This is so comforting. Thank you for making it." Now, that word understated, what that means is that it's gentle, not dramatic. It still shows appreciation, but in a quieter or more reserved way. Each of these compliments that I've shared with you sound natural in English conversation, and more importantly, they match the moment. They show gratitude for the food and for the person who made it. And they help you connect. Because in English-speaking culture, a compliment like this isn't just about the meal. It's about being present, being appreciative, and acknowledging someone's effort and care. All right, moving on to scenario number 2. Now, let's say you're at a casual gathering, maybe a backyard barbecue, a picnic in a park, or a relaxed meal with friends where everyone brings something to share. The atmosphere is easygoing. People are serving themselves buffet style, and someone hands you a plate with grilled chicken, potato salad, and homemade cookies. You take a bite, and it's really good. But again, you pause. You want to say something, but you're not sure what is appropriate, what sounds natural in this more informal setting. So you say, "This is good." And that's fine. But it's also a little flat, a little generic. The truth is, in casual settings, English speakers often use more expressive or playful compliments, even exaggeration. All of this is a way to share enjoyment and create connection. So here's what you could say instead. If you want to sound friendly and enthusiastic, try, "This burger is amazing, so juicy and flavorful." Or, "You've got to give me the recipe for this." Both of these show real interest in the food, and they give the other person something specific to feel proud of. Now, if you prefer something low key but still warm, you could say, "Everything tastes great. Thanks so much for bringing this." Or, "I love this. It's so simple and so good." Now, in this scenario, here's something else to know. In English, it's common to hear playful compliments like, "I could eat myself sick on this," or "This is dangerous. I might go back for thirds." When someone goes back for seconds or they go back for thirds, they're going back for more. Now, these compliments might sound dramatic, but they're just light-hearted ways to say, "I really love this," or "This is so good and I can't stop eating it." Of course, you don't have to use them if they don't feel natural to you, but it's helpful to recognize them. It's also helpful to know that you're likely to hear these compliments when you bring a food dish to a picnic or a barbecue. And again, it's not an exaggeration, it's a playful, lighthearted way to tell you how much someone appreciates your food. And if you do feel comfortable trying one of these compliments, it will definitely add warmth and humor to the moment. And in relaxed settings, it's often expected and welcomed. Now, before we move on to scenario 3, if you'd like some help finding the right words to describe food in detail, like how it tastes, smells, or feels, I have a full lesson on that. In the video, I walk you through exactly how to describe food using rich, natural vocabulary so that your compliments feel even more specific and expressive. I'll share a link to that lesson in the notes below. And now let's imagine you're at work. It's someone's birthday, or maybe someone just felt like baking over the weekend, so they brought in some homemade cookies, maybe even something that is traditional to their family or culture. In attempting to compliment that food, statements such as, "It's fine," or "Not bad," or just "Thanks," will feel underwhelming, especially if the person who brought the food in spent time or effort making it. So here's what you could say instead. First, if you want to express genuine enjoyment and still keep things casual and workplace appropriate, you could say, "This cake is so rich and moist. I could eat the whole thing." Or, "Did you make this? It's amazing." Both of these compliments are warm, natural, and easy to say, even if you're standing at the break room counter with a paper plate in your hand. Now, if you'd rather keep things simple but still thoughtful, you could say, "This is such a treat. Thank you for bringing this in." Or, "This made my day. It's so good." In this scenario, you definitely don't need to go over the top or try to bring in any humor or exaggeration. But when someone shares food, especially something homemade, a small, specific compliment can make them feel appreciated. And it shows that you noticed, it showed that you cared. And that kind of kindness goes a long way. Now, in scenario number 4, let's say that someone gives you food as a gift. Maybe it's some homemade jam, a loaf of banana bread, or a beautifully wrapped box of cookies. All of this is perfectly normal in English speaking countries, especially here in the United States. We quite often give food gifts over the holidays. It may also be possible that someone brought the food gift as a way to say thank you, to celebrate something, or just to be kind. And of course, you want to show your appreciation, not just for the food, but also for the gesture. So, what do you say? If you're receiving the gift and you haven't tried it yet, you could say, "Thank you so much. This looks amazing. I can't wait to try it." Or, "This is so thoughtful. Thank you for thinking of me." And then, if you have already tasted it, you could say something like this: "I had some this morning and it's delicious." Or, "The flavor is incredible. Thank you so much for sharing this with me." And now, here's a little tip. In English speaking culture, it's common to compliment not just the food, but the act of giving. So if you want to focus on the gesture, not the taste, try something like this: "This is lovely. What a thoughtful surprise." Or, "You really didn't have to, but I'm so glad you did." These expressions are polite, warm, and generous. They help you return kindness with kindness. And that's really what a compliment is all about. Moving on to scenario number 5, we're going to talk about what to say when you're eating out in a restaurant. Maybe you're having lunch with a colleague, catching up with a friend, or celebrating something special. Whether the restaurant is casual or more high-end, it's common in English to talk about the food as you're eating. It's part of the experience. If, for example, the food surprises you in a good way, you might say, "This is so good. I wasn't expecting this much flavor." Or, "I haven't had salmon this good in a long time." These kinds of comments are natural ways of showing the enjoyment of the food that you're eating in a relaxed setting. Now, if you're at a nicer restaurant and want your compliment to match the tone or formality of the location, you could say, "The presentation is beautiful and the flavor is exquisite." Or, "The balance of flavors is just perfect." The language in these compliments is highly formal, so it's perfect for a higher end location. Now, if you're at a restaurant that someone else chose to go to, you could also compliment their choice. And you can do this by saying, "This was such a great choice. Thank you so much for suggesting this place." These kinds of compliments do more than just describe the food. They help you share the moment. They keep the conversation going. And they show that you're fully engaged in the experience of being with that person at a restaurant. You're not just eating food, you're enjoying the moment. With those scenarios in mind, I want to pause for a moment and look at the difference that compliments make. To do that, I want you to imagine that someone invites you over to their home for dinner. They've cooked something really special, and they're waiting to see what you think. You take a bite, smile politely, and say, "Thanks, it's good." And you meant it. It is good, but the comment sounds flat, dull, uninterested. So there's this awkward moment where no one speaks, and then the conversation quietly moves on. Now, instead of that comment, imagine saying, "This is absolutely delicious. The flavors come together beautifully. I'd love your recipe." Suddenly, the moment shifts. Your host smiles. Maybe she opens up and starts telling you the story behind the dish. Now you're not just eating, you're connecting with others. It's the same situation, the same meal, but a completely different impact. That's the power of a thoughtful compliment. It turns an ordinary, average exchange into something warmer, something human. In English-speaking culture, compliments aren't just nice things to say, but rather opportunities to make connections and build relationships. With that in mind, I want to talk about a few common mistakes. These aren't bad or wrong. They just might not sound the way you intend to sound in English. They can come across as neutral, even a little awkward. Let's go through a few common examples that I've heard before. The first is, "It's okay." In English, it often means the food was average, acceptable, but nothing special. Or it's not bad. This is a tricky one because it might be meant as a compliment, but it often sounds like you didn't really enjoy it. A third potential mistake is overusing words like delicious. This is a great word and totally appropriate, but if it's the only word you use, it can start to sound repetitive or vague. So instead, try mixing in words like flavorful, comforting, rich, or perfectly balanced. A fourth common mistake is using overly formal language in casual situations. For example, saying that something was exquisite at a backyard barbecue might feel out of place. It's not incorrect, it just might make the compliment feel stiff or overly formal, overly fancy for that particular environment. And finally, the last mistake is avoiding compliments altogether. Some of my students worry about sounding fake or exaggerated, so they don't say anything at all. But in English speaking culture, that silence can feel like disinterest, even when you're actually grateful. So here's what I always tell my students. You don't have to be dramatic. You don't need to say anything that doesn't feel like you. But a sincere, specific compliment, just one or two words, is often enough to show warmth and connection. Now, at this point, I know you might be thinking, but Anne-Marie, what if the food isn't good? Or what if you simply don't like it? This happens, and it's something every fluent English speaker needs to navigate with kindness and confidence. If you're in someone's home or at a work event and the food just isn't for you, here are a few things that can still feel gracious. First, you can focus on the gesture rather than the taste. For example, thank you so much for making this. It looks beautiful. Or, that was so thoughtful of you to bring something. Or let's say you're at a picnic and someone is standing nearby and they're clearly waiting for you to try the food and to react. You can keep your compliment kind but non-specific. For example, it's so nice to try something new. Or, this is really interesting. What's in it? And finally, if you're asked directly what you think about the food, and if you want to be honest but still respectful, you could say, honestly, it's not quite my taste, but I really appreciate you sharing this with me. Or, it's not a flavor I'm used to, but I really appreciate getting to try it. These are all ways to honor the effort without pretending to love something that you didn't enjoy. Before we finish this lesson today, I want to leave you with one more helpful idea. In English, compliments live on a spectrum. You don't need to be over the top or dramatic to make a connection. And you don't need to sound like everyone else. You get to choose what feels most natural to you. Let me show you a range of what that could look like. If you prefer to keep things low-key but warm, you could try, this is lovely. It's so comforting. This is really tasty. Thank you. And then if you want to be more expressive or enthusiastic, you could say, this is divine. You absolutely nailed this recipe. I could eat myself sick on this. What I really want you to know is there's no single right way to give a compliment. What matters most is that it feels sincere. And the more specific you are, the more personal it feels. You now have a range of phrases for real-life situations and the confidence to choose compliments that sound natural, warm, and true to you. Whether you're at a dinner party, a casual picnic, or celebrating a colleague's birthday, you'll know exactly what to say to express appreciation and build connection. If you found this lesson helpful to you, I would love to know. And you can tell me in one very simple way. Be sure to give this lesson a thumbs up here on YouTube. And while you're at it, make sure you subscribe so you never miss one of my Confident English lessons. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time.